And Ayn Rand, of whom so much drivel is written, it's a study in itself, she says that men have taught that it is a virtue to agree with others, but the creator is the man who disagrees. Men have been taught that it is a virtue to swim with the current, but the creator is the man who goes against the current. Men have been taught that it's a virtue to stand together, but the creator is the man who stands alone.
And there's a lot of blame out there. I mean, we're playing the blame game. And we all see it. Who do we blame? The President of the United States, George W. Bush. I do blame George W. Bush. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the deciderer. He's the one who sent the troops off. I blame George W. Bush for what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan, the potential Iraq. I blame the Congress of the United States because this is not a dictatorship. The Congress has a responsibility set forth by the Constitution not only to be involved in declarations of war, but to carry out oversight of the executive. And this is not transpiring today. Congress has rolled over and played dead. So I blame the Congress. And then there's the ultimate boogeyman we all love to blame, the media. I blame the media. I blame CBS News, NBC News, ABC News, CNN, Fox. I blame them all. The New York Times, the Washington Post, they are all to blame because they packaged up these lies and they spoon-fed us. Blame the president, blame the Congress, blame the media, blame the media, blame the media. I hear it. You know what it reminds me of? You're probably going to think I've gone off my rocker at this point in time. It reminds me of springtime in New York. And you're going to sit there and go, dude, you have gone off the deep end. Why do I say spring? You live in Missouri. How cold do your winters get? Do they get cold here? Well, they get really cold up where I live in upstate New York, you see. When the winter comes in, the place freezes up and all the birds fly south. And then you sit there and you shiver as the winter goes on, and you wait, and springtime comes, and the sun comes out, and the miracle of life blooms before you. Grass grows, leaves come out, flowers, and the birds come back from their hiatus. And the birds are very, very productive little creatures. You know, they fly around, they get twigs, they get branches, and they build nests, little homes in these trees. They build them right outside my office where I work at home. And then the miracle of life occurs. They lay eggs, and mama bird sits on the eggs, and they hatch. And out from the little eggs come tiny little baby birds, and they're so beautiful. They sit there and they go, tweet, 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 tweet. And mama bird's sitting on the branch. She hears them tweeting. She flies off because she knows what they want. She goes, gets it. The little worms, the insects, she eats them, puts them in her gut. Then she flies back, and the little birds go, tweet, tweet, tweet. Mama bird lands it, and she pukes down each one of their throat. And the little birds are so happy because they got exactly what they're asking for. And it reminds me of the American people when we turn on the television and we go CBS Evening News, tweet, 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 and they puke down our throat. We get the New York Times and we grab the New York Times and we read it and we go tweet, 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 and they puke down our throats. We're little birds, ladies and gentlemen. We get exactly what we want. We can blame the media all we want. But at the end of the day, it's our fault because we have allowed ourselves to be programmed as tiny little birds willing to receive puke with a smile on our face. We have to stop being little birds. We have to break the little bird syndrome. We have to become what I call citizen intelligence officers, hunter-raptors of information.
Erich Fromm, one of the great psychologists, in his masterpiece Anatomy of Human Destructiveness says, when in group narcissism, the object is not the individual but the group to which he belongs. The assertion that my country or nation or religion is the most wonderful, the most cultural, the most powerful, the most peace-loving, etc., does not sound crazy at all. On the contrary, it sounds like an expression of patriotism, faith, and loyalty. Well, look, if you don't have a selfhood, you don't have any psychic sovereignty, then of course the other forms of sovereignty matter a great deal, and you'll fight and die for a flag. 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years roll by and you're wondering what the people died for. Everything that they died for has come to pass. Everything they died to prevent. And Fromm goes on to say, the sick individual finds himself at home with other similarly sick individuals. The whole culture is geared towards this kind of pathology. The result is that the average individual does not experience the separateness and isolation the fully schizophrenic person feels. He feels at ease amongst those who suffer from the same deformation. In fact, it is the fully sane person who feels isolated in the insane society. And he may suffer so much from the incapacity to communicate that it is he who may become psychotic. And as I said in the earlier part, Some nations, some people, they use the stick to goad them where they want to go, right? But in the West, there's another technique that's been used to pacify and make people docile, and that's just simple affluence. Not that affluence in itself is wrong. You work hard, you want something for it. But the thing is that the whole culture is geared this way. And this has this has the potential to pacify people. After all, when you see horror stories on television about how horrible it is elsewhere, there's a certain amount of emotional reactions that are caused by that. A feeling of all rightness and contentment and conformity comes with that alone. There's a lot that can be born just out of the mere affluence. So when you look around the world and you see the kind of apathy, this is one of the reasons that it's also causes it. But of course they do use the other side as well. Through the media, they're always instilling the key antidote for selfhood, which is fear. Or anxiety, if you use the philosophical terminology. But fear and confusion are good for business, especially for the pharmaceutical monopolies. Consumption of antidepressants rose dramatically after the attack on the World Trade Center. And in Being Human, the authors write, when faced with a life-threatening situation, the reptilian hindbrain, the most primitive part of the human brain, switches off all activity except that which keeps us alive. It sends the subconscious message, do not move, breathe, or blink, or you will be seen and attacked. Right? The limbic centers. And this response mechanism also freezes all activity. And it forces us to use the handrails that are provided. And as Clint Eastwood would probably say, it's about, he said in one of his movies, it's what man knows about himself inside that makes him afraid. So he's speaking there about anxiety. Fear is more of an external thing and can be often legitimate. But anxiety is something about ourselves that causes us to, stay in that one-season world. Something that we don't want to look at and that stops us doing the shadow work. And again, the price of that is the complacency and the willful ignorance and, most importantly, the self-sadism. Now, General Douglas MacArthur, he said that our government has kept us in a state of our government has kept us in a perpetual state of fear, kept us in a continuous stampede of patriotic fervor, with the cry of grave national emergency. Always there's been some terrible evil at home, or some monstrous foreign power that was going to gobble us up if we did not blindly rally behind it. The occultist Manly Palmer Hall, he said that to repress rebellion is to maintain the status quo, a condition which binds the mortal creature in a state of intellectual or physical slavery. But it is impossible to chain man by merely slaving his body. The mind must also be held. And to accomplish this, fear is the accepted weapon. The common man must fear life, fear death, fear God, fear the devil, and fear most the overlords, the keepers of his destiny. Julian Huxley, in the preface to Brave New World, says, as political and economic freedom diminishes, sexual freedom tends to be compensatingly increase, and the dictator will do well to encourage that freedom, in conjunction with the freedom to daydream under the influence of dope, movies, and radio. It will help to reconcile his subjects to their servitude. He goes on to say that sensual pleasures programmed into people as infants through the hypnopedic messages repeated thousands of times as they slept. These messages encouraged sexual promiscuity, attendance at mass entertainments, and the ingestion of drugs for any and every unpleasant feeling or little distress. In Architects of Control, we have a whole section on this concept of the artificiality of the personality induced by drugs. And of course, to caveat what he's saying there, the idea, of course, is not that you actually have